Good morning, good morning.
Early morning.
Speak for yourself, Matt. Very good to see everyone here. Actually, I kind of hope more of you might be on vacation by now, but I see we have a pretty full house. And I think to some extent that reflects the fact that this has been an incredibly busy period. And I wanted to take a moment to speak about a few of the things that we're intensely focused on in this moment. Let me start with this. On Friday, President Biden will host Japanese Prime Minister Kishida and South Korean President Yoon at Camp David to mark what we believe is a new era in trilateral cooperation among our countries. I just spoke this morning with my counterparts from Japan and Korea, Foreign Minister Hayashi, Foreign Minister Pak, to continue to prepare for the summit meeting on Friday. And I want to take this moment, before saying anything else, to extend the deepest condolences of the United States to President Yoon on the passing of his father. He was, by all accounts, a remarkable scholar and, among other things, a strong proponent of relations between the ROK and Japan. This summit comes at a moment when our region and the world are being tested by geopolitical competition, by a climate crisis, by Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, by nuclear provocations. Our heightened engagement is part of our broader efforts to revitalize, to strengthen, to knit together our alliances and partnerships, and in this case, to help realize a shared vision of an Indo-Pacific that is free and open, prosperous, secure, resilient, and connected. And what we mean by that is a region where countries are free to chart their own path and to find their own partners, where problems are dealt with openly, where rules are reached transparently and applied fairly, and where goods, ideas, and people can flow lawfully and freely. Japan and South Korea are core allies, not just in the region, but around the world. Strengthening our trilateral cooperation is critical to delivering for our people, for the region, and for the world. It's a force multiplier for good. It helps us promote peace and stability, and furthers our commitment to the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. It advances our shared values and helps uphold principles of the UN Charter like sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity. It allows us to even more expand opportunity and prosperity. That's why President Biden is hosting this historic meeting, the first time foreign leaders have visited Camp David since 2015, the first standalone summit ever between our three countries. Together, the leaders will have an opportunity to discuss and to strengthen practical cooperation on a variety of shared priorities, from physical security to economic security, from humanitarian assistance to development finance, from global health to critical and emerging technologies. This is something that I've been working on closely for many, many years, building collaboration among the United States, Japan, and South Korea. And I take this back to my time as Deputy Secretary. Then, over 2 years, 2015, 2016, I held 6 trilateral meetings, one of which included then Vice President Biden. As Secretary, I've convened 6 more trilaterals to deepen and strengthen our cooperation. Former Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, of course, is also engaged intensely in working trilaterally with Japan and Korea. Over the years, we have moved from addressing difficult and sensitive issues of history to an increasingly ambitious and affirmative agenda. And as we look to the future, this growing partnership will continue to enable us to do more for the security and the prosperity of all. Let me also say a word about Ukraine. Next week, we will mark a year and a half since Russia's full-scale invasion. A year and a half of bombing Ukrainian schools and hospitals, weaponizing food and fuel, killing and wounding thousands of Ukrainians, even abducting Ukrainian children. For just as long, the people of Ukraine have demonstrated remarkable courage and resilience. The United States, dozens of other countries, will continue to stand with them until Ukraine secures a just and durable peace. Last week, President Biden requested $24.1 billion from Congress to deliver on that promise and continue to support Ukraine's security, its economic, its humanitarian needs, as well as to help other countries experiencing the effects of Russia's war. Our effort and resources, and those of allies and partners around the world, have enabled Ukrainians to fight for their lives, for their freedom, for their future. They've helped uphold the basic principles, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence, that are vital to maintaining international peace and security. They've ensured that Russia's invasion remains a strategic failure. I urge Congress to pass this legislation funding, the supplemental funding, right away. And while they're at it, I once again strongly encourage the Senate to swiftly approve the dozens of ambassadors and other State Department officials who continue to await confirmation. At the same time, our department is working with Ukrainian partners on long-term security commitments to help Ukraine deter and, if necessary, defend against future Russian aggression well into the future. Ukraine should be clear about the enduring nature of our support and that of many other countries that will provide similar commitments to Ukraine. President Putin should be clear about the futility of pursuing his aggression. We also continue to condemn Russia's termination of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which is harming developing countries most of all, and appreciate efforts by countries like Romania and Moldova as we work to get Ukrainian grain to those who most urgently need it. Finally, last week, we confirmed that Iranian authorities released 5 U.S. citizens from prison to house arrest: Simak Namazi, Murad Tabaz, Imad Shargi, and 2 Americans who wish to remain private. Most have been in prison since before this administration took office. 1 has been held for nearly 8 years. None should have been detained in the first place. Yesterday, I spoke with several of these detainees' loved ones. Their resilience, their courage never ceases to inspire. My message to them is the same thing that you'll hear from me today. Moving our people to house arrest is a positive step, but they are not yet home. We're closely monitoring their well-being. We're especially grateful to our Swiss partners for their on-the-ground support, and we will not rest until our fellow citizens are back in the United States, reunited with their families. Nothing about our overall approach to Iran has changed. We continue to pursue a strategy of deterrence, of pressure, and diplomacy. We remain committed to ensuring that Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon. We continue to hold the regime accountable for its human rights abuses, destabilizing actions in the region, funding of terrorism, provision of drones to Russia for its use in war against Ukraine, among many other offenses. We've been clear that Iran must de-escalate to create space for future diplomacy. This development, that is the move of our detainees out of prison and to home detention, is not linked to any other aspect of our Iran policy. It is simply about our people. You've heard me say this before. I have no higher priority than looking out for the security and well-being of Americans around the world. Our department will continue to do everything we can to gain the release of those who are unjustly held around the world. With that, happy to take some questions.
Matt,
Good on.
you want to start us off?
Thank you. Good morning. It's still morning for